Hello, MCU fans. Today is going to be a ranking of all 18 of the MCU Phase 4 entries. That's the movies, the TV shows, the special presentations, you name it. They're all in here. Now, keep in mind, it is a very subjective thing to do rankings, so I guarantee you're going to disagree with at least some of my list, and that's fine because everyone experiences these things differently. They affect everyone differently. So I'm not at all offended if you tell me how wrong I am down in the comments. That's okay, because again, your list is your list, and it's going to be different. So with that in mind, let's dive right in and rank all 18 of the MCU Phase 4 entries. Now, I decided to try to do this very subjective thing as objectively as possible. So I gave each entry a ranking via a 20-point scale in the 4 categories of hero, heroes, villain or villains, story, and then potpourri. And potpourri is basically something unique about that particular entry that either added or took away from the experience. So let's see what we got. Coming in at number 18, Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, I gave the heroes a 3 out of 5. Not so much because I don't like Thor, because I love Thor. Thor Ragnarok was incredible. I like Valkyrie and Lady Thor, Mighty Thor, was a great addition. My problem is how they were all portrayed, particularly Thor. It just took so much away for them to make him lunkheaded. I mean, he's not a dope. He's maybe not the smartest guy on the planet, but in the galaxy, but he's not a dope. And they just feel like they really dumbed him down too much, and it made the overall experience bad for me, even though I loved the heroes. Villains, Gore was amazing. He did everything the movie allowed him to do. The only reason he didn't get a 5 is because they didn't let him really be Gore from the comics. You know, Gore the Godslayer barely slayed any gods whatsoever. But Christian Bale was amazing. Really enjoyed him. It's just shame he was, I guess I have to say, wasted. I feel like he was wasted because they should have done so much more with him. The story, the cancer story, having had many close relatives go through cancer, that was very impactful for me. And I loved the story with Love. Gore's daughter, how she died and then comes back and ends up being a foster child of Thor. It was beautiful. The problem, I think, with me giving it a higher rating is they didn't really get time to dwell on these things. There was so much silliness going on that we didn't really experience all of the impact of Jane's cancer and of Gore in particular and Gore's daughter. And then potpourri, this is the only time it's going to go negative, but I'm sorry, I'm going to make it lose points because of the comedy elements. They were so silly. I mean, with the one that personally bugged me the most, joking about Sif's arm? I mean, come on, everything was a joke. I do love Taika's stuff. It's awesome. I love Thor Ragnarok, but this was just too silly. Too silly. So it gets a 8 out of 20. It's an F score. Notice it's not a 0. It wasn't terrible, and I can even watch the movie again. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I wanted. Okay, number 17, Black Widow. The heroes, it would have gotten a 5 if not for the fact that the movie was supposed to be about Black Widow, and it almost wasn't. But Yelena, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Maybe one of the MVPs, if not the MVP of Phase 4. Such a great character introduction. Can't wait to see more of her. Red Guardian was goofy, but yes, it's still very enjoyable. But this was about Black Widow, and I just didn't feel like that's what the movie was about. So we didn't get to see the Budapest. We didn't get to see some of the things we were expecting to see about her past. So nothing against Scarlett Johansson, but I can't give it a 5 on the heroes. Villains, Taskmaster. Really? Do I need to go into Taskmaster? I mean, I don't mind the gender swap. That's fine. But man, besides barely being used, I didn't like the backstory. And Dreykov was a great villain. He was just so creepy. I don't want to give him points. But yeah, together, it wasn't great. They were not great villains. The story was a good story. I mean, it dealt with child trafficking, a very difficult topic to touch on. It dealt with, redemption. It did have some closure for Scarlett Johansson's character to some extent, but we didn't get the Budapest story we were expecting. Dreykov's daughter was very different than we expected, which is fine. I don't care if it's different, but it wasn't about Black Widow. It was about Yelena, which is fine, but that's not what the movie was supposed to be. So, and then yes, I guess it loses some points for coming out after Black Widow had died, but I don't mind that. I was glad to get her story. It just wasn't the story I expected. And potpourri, boy, you get a 0 here. The final CGI mess was so frustrating. I get the fact that the movie was kind of patterned after Bond movies, and this ending was patterned after Moonraker. But there's a reason Moonraker is one of the lowest ranked Bond movies, because the ending, it was just crazy. It was silly. So was this ending. It was just a CGI mess. It didn't need to. That's not a Black Widow movie. I don't know why they went there. Anyway, Black Widow gets a 9. All right, Eternals. It's low down here, but maybe not for the reasons you might expect. Anyway, the heroes, they were good. There were some good heroes. Cersei, I'm excited to see her again. Enjoyed Phastos, Makari, Druig's powers were very interesting. Athena, enjoy seeing her again. The problem was there were so many. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with having a lot of heroes, but it was tough to get them all introduced and give them all enough time. And then just in general, they were all kind of bland. I mean, they had different powers. They had an important purpose, but there wasn't enough personality able to come out on any of them. So I'm glad to see them again. I hope we do get an Eternals too, and they'll probably rank higher for heroes. Villains, oh my. Wow, really low. Sorry, Deviants. I didn't like the Deviants in the comics, and they did a good job of making me not like them in the movies either. Crow was a little interesting, but really didn't get much of a storyline. No, villains didn't do it for me. The overall story, on one hand, it was a good story because it dealt with, honestly, about abortion. And do you take a life to save another life, or in this case, the lives of the entire planet? Wow, who would have thought Marvel would do a third rail topic like that? It dealt with, turning against your masters and against your purpose. And do we have a fate, or do we have a destiny, or can we choose our own destiny? A lot of great storylines, but I just felt it was overall kind of sloppy because at the end of the day, the Earth should have been destroyed. I'm glad it wasn't. We wouldn't have an MCU anymore, but they didn't do a good enough job to explain how did this happen without, number one, the whole world knowing about it. Which has been a real issue throughout Phase 4 until She-Hulk finally jokingly mentioned it. But I don't know. It just wasn't handled well. You can't have this thing coming out of the core of the Earth and basically nothing happens. Potpourri, I give it some points for introducing some very interesting characters. I couldn't care one way or another about Harry Styles, but I know there's an audience out there that loves the fact that it was just him. But I like Star Fox. He's a very interesting character, but I'm really excited about the Black Knight and Dane Whitman, and it was nice to get the Blade Easter egg. So I'm going to give it points for introducing some good characters. In fact, more interesting than the heroes. So it gets an 11. Number 15 is What If. It's interesting. The heroes in What If were theoretically heroes we've all met, right? But I didn't like the way they made Captain Carter, I don't know, just too happy? Does that sound silly? But she was always smiling and just surprised by this, and I don't know. The attitude they gave her was so different than how Agent Carter, Haley Atwell, has played the character. In fact, like you saw in The Illuminati in Multiverse of Madness, very different personality. I don't mind that it was a different personality, but it was so jarring because I don't think of Peggy Carter as being smiley and happy. She's tough and ready to fight and ready to go. So anyway, I was surprised by that, but I did like seeing T'Challa again. That was amazing. Thor was a bit of a lunkhead, kind of like Love and Thunder, right? So overall, I thought the heroes were okay, but the variants were not better than the original. So let's put it that way. The villains, though, I did really like Infinity Ultron, and I liked Infinity Killmonger, if you will, and Arnim Zola coming back. So if you will, the main villains. There were several villains throughout, but the main villains, yeah, I actually thought they were really, really good. The story, I'm going to go right down the middle on the story. I very much like What If. I always enjoyed the comics, and so I liked the overall concept. I wish they would have spent more time, though, explaining where is the Watcher? What is this place he's in? I think that's as fascinating as the What If stories themselves. Explain to me, where is he? Is this another quantum realm type little pocket universe? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe a bunch of other people were like, hey, who cares? It's just a Watcher. He can see everything. But for Ultron to show up in that space, you got to tell me more then. Where did Ultron show up? So I really hope season 2 goes into the aftermath of this and the Watcher realizing he's not safe in whatever weird pocket universe he's in there. So give me more of that, and I'll rank the story higher. Potpourri, there were some really good what if episodes. The zombie episode was fantastic, getting to see them. Again, the T'Challa episode was unbelievable to have him defeat Thanos in such a different way. So there were some real nice surprises that I didn't expect. And so, yeah, right down the middle on the potpourri. So it's going to get an 11.5. I am Groot. The hero, yeah, you got to love Groot, right? If you love Groot, you love baby Groot. So just nothing more to say, right? He was just fantastic. It was exactly what you expected, and he was funny, lovable, etc. Villains, I realized this one was a stretch. What do you come up with for villains in this? But, they were villains, right? And they were cute. So, okay, they get a 2. The story, not a knock on the story, but it wasn't significant, but it wasn't meant to be. It was just fun. So I can't give this many points because other things that actually had real stories deserve more points. But it was good. It was good. And potpourri, I'm going to give it points for giving us some backstory. Like, how did he get out of that pot, right? Now we know. There was an entire episode devoted to how he got out of the flower pot. That was fun. And there were just some other nice twists and things we learned about Groot. So, okay, it accomplished what it set out to do. And I can't say as much for some of the ones before it. I think some of the ones before this failed to accomplish what they set out to do. So it gets a 12. I have no issues with it. No real knocks. It was what it was, and we enjoyed it. 13 is Miss Marvel. Okay, so on the hero standpoint, gotta love Iman Vellani. Fantastic casting. She did a great job. I also really liked Miss Marvel in the actual series. I didn't have a problem with her power set changing. Didn't have a problem with her being a mutant. I know some people did. For those were drawbacks for some people in both cases. I just felt in general we didn't get enough of her, as strange as that sounds. I mean, it was an origin story, so of course it took a while to get deep into, what was she going to be like as a full-fledged hero. But I kind of feel like we haven't seen that yet. And that's okay. That's not a knock on the series or on her. I just think we don't yet know what she's going to be like. And I think the Marvels will answer that. So that's the only reason she didn't get a 5. Villains, oh my gosh. Okay. Where do I start? Damage control is the only reason there's even a point here, or it would have been 0. I was very happy to see damage control show up. It's nice to see them, out of control and unhinged. It's nice to know that they're going to have a deeper, darker role in the MCU going forward. That was great. The clandestine, they were pointless to me. They didn't have any personality. They just kind of showed up to be a pain. How did they break out of Supermax? That's not their fault. That's bad writing, but still it involved them. They shouldn't have been able to break out that easy. What on earth? I don't know. I had nothing good to say about the clandestine per se. Bad writing, not bad acting, but oh gosh. The story, I'm going to go right in the middle on this. I did like the Bangles. I liked the origin of the Bangles. That was cool. I liked the fact that, there seems to be some ties to the 10 Rings. I thought that was really cool. We don't know what that's going to be. I hate to knock it this much for this, but I really didn't like the time travel. I don't like closed loop storylines. I didn't like Back to the Future's elements of that, even though I liked Back to the Future, but I don't like the closed loop stuff, especially because they had just given us time travel rules in Endgame and in Loki to some extent, and then they break them here. Now, they explained it very well. This was magic involved, not flat-out time travel. It was the Bangles doing this more so than it was standard time travel. So, okay, it all works, but here's my point. Don't confuse us. We're all trying to figure out time travel. It's so important in Phase 4, 5, and 6 with Kang, and then you throw in this wrinkle. It was unnecessary. And so I hate to knock the story just because of that, but that really frustrated me. I was like, don't do this to me when I'm trying to figure this all out. So otherwise, though, it was a really good story. I did enjoy it. And potpourri, I give it huge points for teaching us about Muslim culture. I didn't know anything about Pakistan and India and that whole situation and the horrific impact on lives with the partition. I didn't understand the Eid celebrations at all. So I thought it was fantastic in teaching us about Muslim culture. The only reason it doesn't get a 5 is because I'm so frustrated that they didn't place the series during the real time in the real world when the Eid celebrations actually happen. They happen in June, but the setting is clearly the beginning of her junior year in September. So they lose some points for not seeming to care whatsoever when these events happen in the real world. But still, thank you for teaching me about Muslim culture. I loved it. It was fantastic. So it gets a 12.5. Next is She-Hulk. I'm sure I'm going to get some people upset about She-Hulk being up this high. That's fine. Tell me about it. I don't mind. I can take it. At least you can see where I went with this, right? Heroes. I give her a very solid 4 out of 5. Tatiana was fantastic casting. She-Hulk was a fantastic character. I enjoyed her arc of rebelling against the Hulk, against Bruce, of, hey, I can do this, I can handle it, then realizing, no, I can't, this is tough. The journey she went on, the self-realization of, would I rather be She-Hulk or would I rather be Jennifer? Just all of that was great. She is a fantastic character. I can't wait to see her again. Overall, I felt like maybe the uneasiness of the episodes took away a little bit from her, and that's why I don't give her a 5 yet. I want to kind of see her when she's in a more linear, straightforward story. We'll get more to the story in a second, but she was a fantastic character. Can't wait to see her again. Villains, oh man, I'm being generous to give it a 1. The whole Todd thing. I don't even know whether any of it happened, right? We know some of it didn't happen. He didn't turn into that Hulk thing, but I don't even know, did he exist? It was so confusing when they rewrote some of the things. So anyway, I'll get to more to that in a second. And Titania, I love. Titania was great in the comics. They just didn't use her well. I couldn't figure out at all what her story arc was. And some of that's because they rejiggered the episodes, switched them all around from what they originally were like, but still, ugh. Anyway, so the story, I kind of touched on it a couple times, right? It suffered from the fact that I think they had an order for what they were going to do, and then they changed it all around. Maybe that's not true. Maybe those are rumors, but it sure felt like it, especially in Titania's story. I also don't have any idea what is left of the plot about trying to steal her blood and the vibranium needle. How much of that did Kevin erase? I don't know. I can't tell. It wasn't real clear. We're going to find out in the future. I think in Captain America 4, it's going to become real clear if either all of it was erased or just part of it. But I didn't like that. On the other hand, though, as I alluded to, I really enjoyed Jen's story of self-discovery. It was great learning about her and seeing how she came to accept both She-Hulk and herself. And honestly, I liked the commentary on how men treat women, but also on how women treat men. I mean, Jen was very self-centered. Jen was all about, how do I look on my Tinder profile or whatever the Tinder version is on MCU. She was only worried about hookups, and her entire self-worth was based on who she slept with. I mean, so women weren't given a great view either. This was some of the worst of the male and female personalities and how we deal with life. And it was good commentary. I enjoyed it. So I know for some people, they were really triggered by how men were presented, but I would argue women didn't do too well either. So whatever that's worth. And then potpourri, that's where it gets saved. Daredevil, perfection, chef's kiss, love it. So glad to have him back. It gave me great confidence that Daredevil Born Again is going to be a fantastic series. I was so worried that they weren't going to handle him well. I loved it. Was it 100% perfect? Maybe not. But it was so close that that almost gives it the 5 right there. And then Wong. Love Wong and Madison. Oh my gosh, we need more Madison. I had forgot how much I love Wong, and then you throw Madison in. Oh my goodness, easy 5 for potpourri. So She-Hulk pulls out a 13. I hope that shows, though, why it's up this high. I know this is a lot higher than many people would have, but I just think there were so many good aspects of it that some of the bad things didn't destroy it as much for me as it might have for others. All right, number 11, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The heroes, not much more to say than Sam rocks and Bucky rocks. I enjoyed them both. Again, it probably would have gotten a 5, except that both of them were in transitions in life. And so we didn't really get to see how they were going to be in their realized forms, if you will. I mean, obviously Sam converting to Captain America, but Bucky dealing with this trauma. So I think in their next appearances, I would probably give them a 5. But in this case, it was so transitionary, I have to keep it at a 4. But I love them both. No issue with either one of them. Villains, the only reason this isn't lower than a 3 is U.S. Agent. I did not think I was going to like U.S. Agent going in. I really couldn't stand him at first. But as it went on, I really came to respect Wyatt Russell's presentation of U.S. Agent, but just U.S. Agent in general. So actually, it would be even higher if not for these others. The Flag Smashers just didn't do it for me, and I don't blame the actors. I probably blame the writing more than anything, or maybe just there wasn't enough time to really get into all of the intricacies of what they were doing. But I never felt like I got behind them. That you normally want to understand a villain and kind of feel for, yeah, they got a point. I don't know. They had a point, but they never explained it very well. And then Batrick, I have no issue with. He's great. He probably raised the score up. But he's a secondary villain. So, but I enjoyed everything they did with him and how they used him. He was great. The story, this is where I may get people upset that I didn't go higher on this. But I guess I kind of struggled with how Sam was able to figure out the shield so quickly. And I know it probably took place over weeks, but still, Captain America was a super soldier, and Sam chose not to take the serum. That's fine. But that's why Captain America was able to throw that heavy thing and throw it perfectly and make it bounce off of everything. And just his skills were enhanced, both physically, mentally, etc. So I don't have an issue that Sam figured it out and kicks butt with it, because he would not be fun to watch if he hadn't. I just didn't feel that it was earned. I'll just be honest. And then, of course, overall, the Flag Smashers drove me crazy. It didn't work. They raised important issues. They brought to the forefront how much the blip messed up life, and how those that came back trying to be reacquainted with their homes again, and etc. Raised a ton of good issues, but just not enough. Potpourri, I'm going to give it. I almost gave it a 5. Isaiah Bradley was incredible. Incredible, not only in his performance, but in his character in general. Amazing. And then Zemo, it's always awesome to get Zemo back. And then we got Dancing Zemo. You got to love it. So, yeah, fantastic. The only reason it probably didn't get a 5 is we didn't get more of them. I could have handled almost double the amount of time for both. But anyway, still gets a nice solid 14 in 11th place. All right, number 10, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This will also be interesting to see where people place this one. But we start right off with a 5 on the heroes. I've always loved Benedict Cumberbatch. He did a fantastic job here. We already touched on Wong being fantastic. And America Chavez, what a great introduction. I cared about her from moment one. That's surprising. That doesn't normally happen. But I really, really got into her character right off the bat. Villains, you can't get much better than Wanda. So it would have been a 5 immediately. Other than, and I really fault the script for this, they just didn't explain her transition from WandaVision to Multiverse of Madness. Now, here's what's interesting. I think her transition was earned because if you go back and watch the end credit scene to WandaVision, she was reading the Darkhold. That's not a good idea. And the Darkhold was tempting her by having her kids call out to her from the multiverse. Yikes. So it totally makes sense why she went, true villain in Multiverse of Madness. I get it. And plus, by the way, there's a year between WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness. A year she was reading the Darkhold. So I totally get it. It totally makes sense. But the movie didn't explain that. It just kind of was like, oh, she's evil. So that's the only reason I don't give it a 5 is I feel people that don't like how she was treated in the movie, it's not her fault. It's the script's fault. But still, it ends up making her a little bit less of a villain. The story for me was mixed. I loved the concept of Multiverse of Madness. I loved what was promised. I'm not sure they delivered on it. But here's what's weird. I don't have an issue with the story as presented. I have an issue with the story as marketed, which then let me down. Does that make sense? I think Marvel had a problem with this on a couple different things in Phase 4. They marketed it one way, and then you go in and you're like, well, that's not the movie you told me I was going to get. I don't have an issue with the movie you gave me, but it's not what you told me you're going to get. So maybe it's unfair that I'm beating up on the story a bit for how it was marketed, but I do not like how it was marketed. It just didn't work. But I did overall like the horror elements. Go Marvel for that. I mean, they really dug in deep on that. In fact, I probably should give it higher for some of the horror elements, but the story was just too rocky for me. Because of the marketing. So Potpourri, once again, I think the marketing hurt this. I would have given it higher for just getting to see all of these characters we wanted to see. Oh my goodness. It was like, wow, you're kidding me, right? But they marketed it like they were a big part of the movie. Why did they do that? Now, I loved the fact that they got demolished. I mean, that was fun. if you forget the marketing and you just go into the movie, you're like, yeah, this worked. But if you look at the marketing, they made us think like these are going to be a big part of this, that maybe they're even going to come over to our universe because it's multiverse and variants. No, none of that. We're going to kill them all immediately. So it's, if not for the marketing, I would actually rank this movie a lot higher. I really, really enjoyed the movie once I got past what I thought it was going to be. So look, it's still a 15 out of 20. I mean, it's way up there, but I think it'd be even higher if not for Marvel just messing with us. I even remember Kevin Feige saying they're showing too much of this in the previews. They're showing too much of this in the previews. So yes, Kevin, you were right. They did, and it messed with it. All right, number 9, Hawkeye. Heroes. I can't believe I would give a 5 to anything that has Hawkeye as the main character. Just because, he's kind of been a boring character. But they made him awesome in this. Great job resolving the Ronin story arc. I loved the family elements of it, how he became like an adoptive father for Kate Bishop, but also how much he wanted to go back to his family. And Kate Bishop, oh my gosh, multiple chef's kisses. Haley Steinfeld is perfect in the character. And plus, just what a awesome passing of the torch. This might be the best passing of the torch that Marvel has done. We've seen several with Hulk and Scar. We've seen Iron Man and Ironheart. We've seen Captain America and the Falcon passing the shield on. This one, and we've seen Black Widow to Yelena. So we've not really Thor yet, but we've seen several passing of the torches. This was the best, without a doubt. Can't wait to see Kate Bishop again. Villains, Yelena puts it at a 5.0 easy. Kingpin would have kept it at a 5, but I feel like they didn't really adapt him as well as they could have. He was a little silly at the end. That suit, I get why he wore the suit. It was in the comics, and Vincent D'Onofrio thought it'd be cool to wear the suit. No, they should have told him, no, it's not cool. Don't wear that suit. But not just the suit, but he was just kind of cartoonish at the end. But still, I was so glad to have Kingpin back. And Echo was great. I thought her character arc was great. Enjoyed her. I'm looking forward to her series. So would have been a 5 if they would have handled Kingpin a little better. The story was good. I touched on the passing of the torch. I liked that. I liked the Ronin ties, and Kingpin, etc. The LARPing marks it down for me. I didn't like the LARPing. I see why they had to do it. It solved a lot of problems. It brought some characters in for the end. They fitted in well enough to the overall story. I just thought it was kind of silly and maybe not necessary, and maybe turned an otherwise pretty good story into a little cartoony. But I'm going to give it some big points for being a Christmas themed, and not just being Christmas themed, but really pulling it off. I'm going to watch this again this Christmas just because it felt so Christmassy to me and so well done. We don't get many holiday things. We'll talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special coming up, but I thought this one was great. So I give it some points for really leaning in to Christmas. So it gets a 16 out of 20. Number 8, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Heroes, or maybe hero, fantastic. Shang-Chi, fantastic introduction. Great representation. Good origin story. I loved his martial arts skills. We just don't get to see something like, we've never seen hand-to-hand combat like that other than maybe in Winter Soldier. That was really close. But man, he was amazing. Just so cool. Katie was great. Wouldn't necessarily call her a hero per se, but she was great. And Xialing, if she's going to be good, I don't know. I don't know what she's going to do with the 10 rings, but I liked her character. So yeah, solid 5. Villains, Wenwu. What more do you need to say? Oh my goodness, he was fantastic. He had a similar arc in a way to Wanda, different but similar in that he was being tricked. In his case, his wife calling out to him, and it just shows the power of love, of how far we would go for love, how far Wanda would go for her kids, and how far Wenwu would go for his wife. Just really amazing, and plus very well acted, obviously. And the 10 rings, all of it, just great stuff. So story, the only reason the story didn't get a 5 is it was a little CGI heavy at the end, a little hard to follow. I liked riding the dragon and all that stuff. It fit in with the Chinese culture that they were bringing in and how much we learned about the Chinese culture, but it just was a little much maybe, but still. Amazing story. I'm only going to knock it down 1 for just going a little off the rails maybe at the end, but still, they kept it together, and it was a good. They stuck the landing. A potpourri. Now this is weird. This is where I'm going to get some objection perhaps, but I marked it down pretty far because I'm very concerned about the future of Shang-Chi. Those 10 rings make him way OP. And I want martial arts Shang-Chi. I don't want Shang-Chi using ultra powerful 10 rings. I guess we'll have to see what happens next, right? We'll have to see whether when he shows up next time, he's just demolishing everyone with the rings. You know, I don't know. So it left me going, I was on a high until he got the rings near the end of the movie. And then when they're talking even more about, these aren't even from the earth. They're so I don't know. We'll see where they go with it, but I'm very worried they're going to ruin an otherwise great character by making him too powerful. We'll see. All right. Anyway, overall, 16.5. All right, Moon Knight. Loved Moon Knight. Fantastic introduction of Moon Knight. Layla was amazing. The backstory with the multiple personalities, they handled that really well from the comics, holding off on Jake to the very end. Just amazing. Can't wait to see more from Moon Knight. Can't wait to see more from Layla. Solid 5. Villain, again, solid 5. Haro was amazing. Ethan Hawke, oh my goodness, dude, what a good actor. I had forgotten he existed, and everybody loves him now. Everybody wants him in everything after this show. Just amazing. Very, very in-depth look at the motivations he had. From the start, when he puts on those shoes with glass in it, you'd love this guy from the very first moment. So, solid 5. Story, likewise, incredible story. Maybe a little too confusing at times. I'm okay with that, but just really well handled on multiple personalities disorder. I think, as I've said on a couple other ones, the end might have been a little too CGI heavy. I know it's a movie about gods. I don't know that I needed to see two giant gods beating the snot out of each other. When all I really cared about was Haro fighting Moon Knight, but okay. I'm not going to let that take a lot away from the story, but we didn't need that. But so be it. So I hope Marvel realizes that the knock on several of the Phase 4 things has been the final crazy battles that we didn't need. Potpourri, so this is interesting. I really liked the introduction to Egyptian culture that we got, and learning about the gods, and learning about the Duat, and learning about the afterlife. I guess it for me it was a little confusing, and I'm getting a little worried that we can keep dying and coming back from the afterlife. We may see it rather with Jane Foster coming back in Thor. Does death have any meaning? So it's weird that I'm going to walk away kind of unsatisfied about that, and that's going to hurt Moon Knight overall. But death has got to have meaning. So we got variants, which we can, hey, you died? Oh, we'll go find your variant. Here you go. Or, hey, I know you went to the afterlife, but you know what? You can come right back from the afterlife. No problem. I don't know. We just got to be careful. Marvel's got to be really careful about making death have a meaning. Otherwise, give us Tony Stark back, right? Give me everybody back. Why not? So anyway, that's the only knock I have. They keep introducing too many ways to get back from death. All right, but it's still solid 17 out of 20. All right, Werewolf by Night. Great introduction to the heroes. Love Jack. Love Man-Thing. Can't wait to see them again. They were handled really well. You didn't get a lot of character development on either one of them, but at the same time, you felt like you knew them. I mean, it was Ted. It wasn't even Man-Thing, it was Ted. So great introduction to the heroes. Can't wait to see him again. Villains, the 4 hunters, they were just fodder. I get that. But Barusa? Oh man. I don't think the special would have been anywhere near as good if not for her. So while the other hunters probably would have made us a low score, she raised it way up there. She was just an over-the-top performance. Loved every minute with her. She made it fantastic. The story, I really liked the overall story. I really liked Jack and Jack and Ted's friendship. That was awesome. This is going to sound silly, but the only reason I'm going to give it a 4 instead of a solid 5 is I wish they would have given us at least a little teens of an indication of when this was happening and where it was happening. I do like that it didn't need to do that for 99% of the runtime, but I wish at the end we would have got some hint, because I know I'm timeline obsessed. We all know that, right? But give me something. Help me really know when this is happening and where it's happening. But that's okay. I can hang loose. I can wait. We'll get the answer later. But that's why it didn't get a 5. However, on Potpourri, Oh, it gets a 5 for the horror elements. I mean, Marvel just leaned in heavy on the horror elements. You could argue Multiverse of Madness did too, but being PG-13, they kind of didn't really show some of the, you knew what happened, and it was some pretty awful stuff to some of those, to the Illuminati. You actually saw it happen to these guys. It's like, I can't believe Marvel went there. You were just like, wow. So I give them huge credit for just leaning into the horror elements. So it gets a nice solid 17.5. Coming at number 5, the Guardians Holiday Special, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. So the two holiday specials were, or the two special presentations were fighting each other, and I do believe Guardians just edges out Werewolf by Night. So the heroes, not only do you already love Drax and Mantis, but you love them even more after this. My goodness, this was Mantis' story in a way. She really came out and just was fantastic. Her fighting skills, oh my goodness, jumping all over the place. Yeah, it was amazing. And how she combined her fighting skills with her power of empathy and you know, convincing people to feel a certain way. Amazing. Fantastic. Now, villains, you might say there wasn't a villain. I'm going to argue there was. Yondu, at least at the beginning, I mean, he's the one that ruined Christmas, and you could argue much of the story was based on people's misunderstanding of the fact that Yondu didn't ruin Christmas. But after that, they never talked about it. They never celebrated it. I mean, in a way, this was actually really important to the plot. I obviously can't give it a very high ranking, and it's going to lose some points just because there wasn't a true villain. But I'm still going to say Yondu was very important to this. It was very nice to see him again, and nice to see him end not villainous. You know, even though he still hated Peter and was mean to him, we see at the end that, you know, they did a little touching thing together. He gave him the guns, and he received the little doohickey. For the story overall, I wouldn't have changed a thing. Wouldn't have changed a thing. Great from beginning to end. Kevin Bacon, fantastic. The Christmas theme, they leaned so heavily into Christmas, just like they did with Hawkeye. So yes, this does beat out Hawkeye on being more Christmassy. Just fantastic, fantastic. And then potpourri, oh my goodness, the Mantis and Star-Lord, learning their brother and sister, just seeing that hug, how much it meant to Star-Lord, that none of the rest of this mattered as much as it mattered to learn that she was his sister. That was beautiful. And then, as though it didn't already get enough credit, it gets even more for giving us Cosmo and learning more about Cosmo, telekinesis, and the now talking through the translator, I assume. Just fantastic. So, solid 18 for the holiday special. All right, so it just gets really hard at this point, and I know I'm going to get yelled at for all of the remaining ones not being in the same order that everybody would want. But again, you know, it's subjective. It's how you feel about it. All right, so Wakanda Forever at number 4. Heroes, fantastic job with the heroes. The transition of Shuri from Kid Sister to Black Panther, amazing. Nakia Okoye, fantastic. Ironheart, great. I can't wait to see more of her. Yeah, I just, no complaints, beginning to end, fantastic job on all the heroes' parts. Likewise with the villain, Namor. Oh my goodness, I didn't really like Namor in the comics. He wasn't Namor there. I didn't really like Namor in the comics. He kind of bugged me. Each time he was listed as a villain, I'm like, oh good, I hope they all pound on him. I just can't stand him. That's probably unfair, but I didn't like him in the comics. I loved him in the movie. He was amazing. I really cared about him. I cared about what he liked. I cared about what he hated. I cared about his feelings and his methodology in life. It was wrong. It was twisted at times, yes, but you understood his motivation. So yeah, really enjoyed him. I can't wait for more of Namor. Story was great. Story was dealing with perhaps one of the most impossible topics ever for a movie to have to deal with, the death of a beloved character in real life. Of an actor in real life, Chadwick Boseman. So, I guess I struggle a little bit with it being perfection because I feel it actually took away from the story to put in Ironheart, to put in Ross, to put in Val, and some of those other stories. I know why they put them in, world building. I thought they did it well. I already said I loved Riri Williams. I just felt like it almost took away from what was really the central story, which was Shuri becoming Black Panther and Wakanda dealing with the death of its king. So I'm not against world building. In fact, I don't think you've heard me comment about world building yet. It's just this might be one of the few movies where I'm like, no, I'm okay if you don't world build. Let's just sit with this. So that's the only reason it didn't get a 5. but everything that they did do with Shuri and Wakanda and Ramonda, etc., amazing. And then potpourri, I'm going to give it a good solid 4 out of 5 because I'm excited about the future of T'Challa Jr. I love the fact that Ramonda got to meet him. I love the fact that Shuri got to meet him. And of course, Nakia being with him. The only reason it doesn't get a 5 is I'm a little perplexed about what they're going to do with someone that's 6 years old. But I'm sure they have a plan. I'm sure they're going to figure it out. I hope it's not hokey. I hope Kang doesn't come in and hit him with a time wand and go, and now you're 18, or something really silly. I hope they handle it well. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Didn't see that coming. I heard rumors, but it was nice to see it actualized. So yeah, Wakanda Forever gets a nice solid 18.5. All right, we're down to the top 3. Again, I'm going to get yelled at on every one of these. But number 3, Spider-Man No Way Home. Heroes. I never thought I'd see Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield suit up again. I watched them from the very beginning. This was 20 years of Spider-Man history, all brought together. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was like heaven. It was like heaven. Spider-Man's my favorite hero. So the fact this isn't number 1 really says something because I collected Spider-Man comics for so many years. I had all the way back to Spider-Man number 24, I think it was, before I finally sold my collection. So I love Spider-Man. So 5, solid 5, absolute solid 5. I only bring up my love of Spider-Man to say that's why it's probably shocking it isn't number 1. The villains, I can't ask for anything better. Oh my goodness, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, the most awesome portrayals as well as awesome villains. You can't ask for anything more. Electro wasn't used as much, but was used well. And yes, Sandman and Lizard didn't do much at all, but it was still nice to have them there. Nice to have them all together. Solid 5. Story. This is where I really struggled. I initially was going to give it a 5. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the story. It's my guys. They're all together. I had a couple people who knew I was doing this ranking. One in particular really challenged me and said, "Hey, there's a lot of plot holes in that movie, and you're not looking at it objectively." Boy, I don't know if I'd call them plot holes as much as I would certainly call them contrivances, and that is true. To make this happen, to pull in 5 villains and 2 Spider-Men, all from different multiverse stories or points in the timeline, that was really hard. And it did require, a spell that probably shouldn't have been cast, and Peter shouldn't have been messing with it, and that was silly a little bit. And then the fact that Doctor Strange doesn't even realize there was real problems with the spell beyond just fixing it. And then the fact he sent 3 kids to go collect the villains. Okay, I get it. Yep, I get it. There were some things where you just kind of had to go, hey, roll with it. You get to see 3 Spider-Man and you get to see 5 villains. So just accept it. That's fair. That's very fair. I guess I can't give it a 5 based on that alone. Otherwise, though, oh man, what a movie. What a movie. And under potpourri, I do have to give it a 5 because to be gutsy enough to kill Aunt May, oh my gosh, and in such a meaningful way to have her be the ones to say, with great power comes great responsibility, to realize suddenly this is Tom Holland's origin story. All 3 movies. This is what led to him being the Spider-Man we know from the comics. And even to have his identity taken away. Well, not just his identity, but Peter Parker taken away, for crying out loud. But, no one at least knows he's Spider-Man again. Wow. Yeah, that gets a 5. The story, okay, if I'm objectively speaking, it wasn't perfect. And so I got to give it a 4. But man, Aunt May part, solid. Okay. Once again, I'm going to get yelled at because this is going to probably surprise people, but I'm putting Loki at number 2. So hero, I really don't need to explain why we love Loki, right? I mean, we thought he was dead. Nope, he's back. Oh, wait, it's the villainous Loki. Oh, we get to watch him again on this path of restoration and becoming a hero. I love Loki. Thank you for bringing him back, Marvel. Thank you so much. Villains, okay, this is interesting. The only reason I don't give it a solid 5 is because we were introduced to Kang so late in the series. We didn't really get a chance to know him. Plus, this isn't the same Kang we're going to see later. So that's the only reason it doesn't get a 5. That's the only reason it's not perfection. But Jonathan Majors' performance was unbelievable. And the lead up, I remember sitting there thinking, it's not going to be Kang. They're going to do this again. We're going to get Mephisto'd. We're not going to get Kang. We got Kang. Oh my gosh, it's Kang. I couldn't believe it. So it was awesome. Again, it would be a 5 if we had been introduced to him a little bit earlier and or if he hadn't been killed, meaning we met the Kang we're going to see later. But no problem with this Kang. He was great. The story, I mean, fantastic, obviously. This idea of being outside of time, this idea of free will. Do we even have free will? This idea of, can you be restored? Loki, is he going to, when he realizes his life is basically a warning for others about what not to do. His role in life is for others to become great and for him to be the patsy. I mean, just some of those realizations were amazing. And then Sylvie was fantastic, seeing her storyline and her seeking revenge and ultimately being unwilling to let go of that revenge. I didn't think they would do that, and they did. She plunged that knife right into Kang. So fantastic. And then potpourri, just the introduction of variants. I mean, think about how important that was. Old man Loki, alligator Loki. You gotta love it, right? So it showed us that variants don't have to be just like the one that you're used to in the main universe. They can be very different, or they can be the same. Some of them look the same. So major, so important. And I just remember being so excited about the next Loki episode after being introduced to these guys in the end credit scene. So yeah, Loki, 19.5, near perfection. So yes, send the negative comments to me now because I'm putting WandaVision at number 1. So give me a chance. Just give me a chance before you yell at me. So first of all, the heroes. I think everyone would agree that Wanda is amazing. Amazing. Vision was awesome. I mean, we thought he was dead, and he was. They didn't trick us. He didn't come back from the dead suddenly. He was created by Wanda. And then he did come back as White Vision, and they did that so well. So they kind of brought him back twice, once as a spell and once for real, but with no memory. And so fantastic. And the kids were great. I enjoyed the kids. So there's a reason that there were so many Emmy nominations for this series. Why the acting was just so strong that the awards world had to acknowledge it. Now, normally the awards world would never care about something silly like a Disney Plus Marvel show. No, they loved it. They ate it up. Along that same line, Agatha, right? And you could argue Agatha is similar to Kang in that we didn't really know she was the villain till the end, but we really did. I mean, we were the ones looking for Mephisto. Marvel never said Mephisto's going to be in this. That was us. So I don't fault Marvel for marketing this one wrong. Marvel never said Mephisto was going to come in. We just all kept assuming it. It was actually great when suddenly we realized it really was Agatha all along. There's a reason that song was number 1 on the charts for a while, and why she also received an Emmy respect. So yeah, it's just fantastic. Couldn't ask for anything more from the heroes and the villains. The story, oh my. Okay, I'll admit, part of what makes me love this so much is I grew up watching either real time some of these shows, or at least in reruns for some of the way old ones as a kid. When you're bored, what else you got to do is watch all these shows. So to see this WandaVision so perfectly respect and honor all these generations of TV shows was incredible. Vision, the love story between Wanda and Vision, the grief. What is love if not grief persevering? That quote. I mean, is that the best quote from all of Phase 4, if not right up there with all of the MCU period? Maybe not top quote, but right up there. Just an unbelievable story from beginning to end. And then in potpourri, this is what really set it apart for me. The supporting cast was unbelievable. Number 1, we got the origin of Monica Rambeau, whatever name she takes, Photon or whatever. It's unclear at this point where that's going to go. But it was seamless. It didn't felt forced in. It didn't, like I mentioned with Riri Williams, kind of feeling forced into Wakanda Forever. No, Monica Rambeau, at least to me, felt just perfectly. It flowed in naturally. Then to have Jimmy Woo and Darcy, 2 of my favorite supporting characters, who I honestly didn't even know if I'd ever see again, both of them back and playing off each other so well. Oh my goodness, amazing. And then, yeah, I know, Pietro, they Ralph Bonered us. I get all that. But you know what? I could accept it for the fact that this was the first time we ever got the idea of a variant. In fact, we hadn't even had Loki come out yet, so we weren't even really sure where all this was going to go. So okay, this is the Evan Peters, if you will, the variant in our world. He's just a dude. He's just Ralph Bohner. Okay, that's fine. But I still got several episodes with him being Quicksilver, which were awesome, and just the reveal of him showing up was fantastic. So I can let it go. It doesn't ruin for me WandaVision that was not the real Quicksilver. So yeah, I guess it's just me, but I give it a perfect 20. I wouldn't have changed anything. It kicked off Disney Plus. I don't know that Disney Plus would have been the success that it was if not for this particular show succeeding when it succeeded. For us talking endlessly about theories and ideas after every single episode. Yeah, I really think it set the bar and made Disney Plus the success that it is. So there you go. There's my 18. Now you can write in the comments and tell me what you like and didn't like. I'm okay with that. And one last thing I want to do, I want to show this. This is what it would look like if it was just the movies, because I know that I threw the movies and the shows in there, but it doesn't change anything. This is still the order I would have ranked the movies. And notice something interesting. The movies, at least for me, were the low point, you could argue, of Phase 4. I mean, 3 of them are the bottom 3. Then there's 2 others that are both good. I mean, Shang-Chi ain't no low point. It's number 8 in my list overall, but still, it's not a low point. And then even from me, Wakanda Forever and Spider-Man No Way Home weren't my favorite things. But regardless, the point is, I think everybody's list is going to be different, but I bet you if you're going to look at your list and you integrate them all together, you'll see that the movies overall were not as well received as the shows. Look at the shows, on the other hand. Again, your list is going to be different, but I think you're still going to see that I think Disney Plus saved Phase 4. I mean, yes, there were controversial things like She-Hulk for some people who really hated it, or Miss Marvel for some didn't like it because they maybe just didn't like Miss Marvel. What If was rocky at times, yes, but overall, look at this. I really think it's fascinating that Disney Plus may be the shining star of Phase 4. So just interesting to see. All right, so there you go. Tell me what you think. Now we move on to Phase 5, but tell me what you think before we leave to Phase 5 about your rankings and where you think I got it right, where you think I got it wrong, and where your list is. And keep in mind, I got a lot more content coming as we close out Phase 4. But in the meantime, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out existing content, and we can all continue to enjoy the ever-changing, ever-growing Marvel Cinematic Universe.